the stars of Williams teammates Ricardo Patrese and Nigel Mansell have ascended. In Mexico, they left Senna in their dust, then went wheel to wheel en route to a 1-2 sweep. For longtime journeyman Patrese, the victory was a personal triumph. The sweep returned Frank Williams and his team to the pinnacle of worldwide motorsport. Today, Williams will be the favorites at the Grand Prix of France. In the Loire Valley region of central France lies the newest circuit in Formula One, Magny Cours, site of round 7 in the World Driving Championship, the Grand Prix of France. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsho. Welcome to a race with a history older than that of the Indianapolis 500. Behind me on this brand new racing surface, you see visible evidence of a team that may be getting just a little bit desperate. Those skid marks were laid down by Ayrton Senna in the final moments of Saturday's last qualifying session as he hurled his car off the final corner in an effort to take the pole. It didn't work. For the first time in 4 years, the sport's preeminent qualifier finds himself pushed off the front row of the grid for 3 straight races, behind not only the hottest driver in the series, Ricardo Patrese of Italy in the Williams Renault, but also Senna's old title rival Alain Prost in a new and heavily revised Ferrari. Now, both of those cars use the newest technology in Formula One, a power-assisted semi-automatic transmission. As for the world champion's thoughts on his chances in today's race, we set our intrepid Formula One analyst David Hobbs into the crowd that invariably surrounds him.
Ayrton, your season got off to a tremendous start, 4 poles and 4 wins. Are you at all concerned that McLaren and Honda can put you back on the track to success?
Well, surely Ferrari and Williams have made big improvements from last year, particularly Williams, and as soon as they finished the races, they were ahead of us. And Ferrari lately has made another step forward, and they look very strong too now. And with the number of races remaining in the championship, I think it's a completely open situation. We have a cushion in number of points right now, but that doesn't mean that we are in an easy position. We right now don't have the best equipment between chassis and engine, and therefore we have to take our time. And in the meantime, hopefully the technicians, both from Honda and McLaren, can come with some solutions which will put us forward and give us the possibility of continue fighting for the championship.
How important do you think that semi-automatic transmission is on the Williams?
Well, I believe it is the way to go for the modern racing cars. It gives more consistent running as long as it's reliable, easier for the driver, and also I think it's quicker enough in a lap because you can concentrate driving harder with the 2 hands on the steering wheel, and you don't miss gears at all. And not only qualifying, but also in racing, when you are with the physical stress during an hour and a half, 2 hours, for sure it will give you at the end of a race distance few seconds.
Okay, thanks very much. Now we want to go down the pit just a couple of places to definitely the man of the moment and his far more highly paid teammate, John Bisignano.
Thank you very much, David. Of course, the threat to Ayrton Senna and the McLaren team, both here in France and for the World Championship, comes from these 2 gentlemen, Nigel Mansell and Ricardo Patrese of the Cannon Williams team. Nigel, the team was so strong through the North American swing. Are you going to be able to maintain that strength here in Europe for the next several races?
Well, we certainly hope so, and Ricardo's doing a fabulous job, and I'm chasing him hard now. I think he's the team leader at the present time, but we're great teammates, and I'm very, very happy for the team and the competitiveness we have.
Well, Ricardo, 15 years in Formula One. I've never seen you drive harder. I've never seen you drive better. Where's it coming from?
Because Nigel is beside me. He's pushing on me. No, I have still a lot of motivation because Williams Renault is doing a fantastic job. They put together a fantastic car this year, and I think that this is the reason why maybe I'm trying a little bit harder this year. Together with Nigel, really we do a good couple, and I think that we can have good fun to the end of the year, I hope.
Good fun and good results from the Cannon Williams Renault team.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Since it was announced 2 years ago that the French Grand Prix would move here to Magny Cours, this racetrack has been steeped in controversy and politics. Consider that one of its most ardent supporters is French President Francois Mitterrand, for whom this region is home and who's expected to be in today's sellout crowd. It is billed as state-of-the-art, both in terms of competition and safety for the drivers. We ask our David Hobbs to take a closer look and give us his analysis.
Well, Bob, this is the 7th venue of the French Grand Prix since 1950, and it certainly is the safest, but not necessarily the best. Lots of gravel traps, wall all the way around, and tons of safety apparatus and wonderful facilities. But with 20 direction changes in 2.6 miles, overtaking is going to be extremely difficult. Anyway, let's take a look at how it's laid out. Turns 1 and 2, a couple of very fast left-hand sweeps, leading into the S-drill, which is a 180-degree right-hander, very long and very fast, tough on the driver's necks and shoulders. This leads onto the main straight, even that's not quite straight, down to the Adelaide hairpin, very sharp right-hander. Coming out of that, we go into the S, which is a quick right, left, right flick, leads down to the Nürburgring chicane, and the official 180-degree corner, which is a very tight left-hander. Coming out of there, the cars pick up a lot of speed, come to the Imola chicane, which is a right, left, right, with a big dip in the middle. That leads into Chateau d'Eau, which is a right-hander, and comes down to the last two corners, the chicane and the Lycée, which is a very sharp right-hander, onto the pit straight. Well, as I say, passing here is not going to be easy, and it's a bit of an antiseptic circuit, but don't take my word. This is what some of the drivers thought of it.
It's not a very hard Formula One circuit, really. To learn, it took me about 3 laps, I think, to learn the thing. It's just not very difficult at all. The best corner is the big right-hander onto the back straight, but it's just those Mickey Mouse, too tight and twisty, really, for a Formula One.
Here's a quick track. It's nice to drive here. It's hotter than Brazil. In the middle of nowhere, there is no hotel around, nothing. Apart this is a good track for Formula One.
The circuit's quite nice. Obviously, we've got nice facilities, a brand new track. I think the track in general could be a little bit better safety-wise. There's a couple of corners on it where I think the runoff's a little bit marginal.
Well, it's a very nice circuit. It's all new. It's very good quality of asphalt. Nice corners, slow, fast. I mean, you got everything here, a little bit of straight. It's a good combination of everything, except that it's very difficult to overtake. That's the main problem at the moment.
So there you have it, Bob, straight from the mouths of babes and innocents. You get on with the grid, and I'll just pop up there and join you. Toot sweet.
Well, Bon Chance, old hoss, in this crowd. 60,000 permanent seats have been occupied here at Magny Cours since dawn as we approach 2 o'clock on a very hot day at Magny Cours. The radio stations have been broadcasting across France. If you don't have a ticket, do not come to Magny Cours. Now let's take a look at the way they'll line up in our brute starting grid. On the pole for the 3rd straight race, Riccardo Patrese. Next to him, Alain Prost, looking for an unprecedented 6th win in his home race for Ferrari. On row 2, Ayrton Senna of Brazil of the McLaren Honda, 9th in the morning warm-up. He could have problems. Nigel Mansell next to him on row 2 in the Williams Renault, 2nd quickest in the warm-up. On row 3, Gerhard Berger of Austria in the 2nd McLaren Honda, 13th quick in the morning. Next to Jean Alesi of France in the 2nd Ferrari 643, who broke his gearbox in the warm-up. Row 4, all Benetton boys from Brazil. Nelson Piquet, who was 19th in the warm-up. Next to him, 23rd in the warm-up, Roberto Moreno in the 2nd Benetton Ford. On row 5, Maurizio Gugelmin of Brazil in the Leighton House, next to Gianni Morbidelli of Italy in the Minardi. Row 6, Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell Honda, next to the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini of Italy. Row 7, Andre de Cesaris of Italy, seeking points in his 3rd straight race for the first time in his career of more than a decade. Next to him, Eric Comas of France in the hometown team, the Ligier Lamborghini. Row 8 will be Yvonne Capelli of Italy in the Leighton House, next to Terry Boutsen of Belgium in the 2nd Ligier, 3rd quickest in the morning. Row 9, Mark Blundell of Great Britain in the Brabham Yamaha, next to the 2nd Tyrrell, driven by Satoru Nakajima of Japan. Row 10 will be Bertrand Gachot next to Johnny Herbert, 2 of the 3-man team that won the 24 Hours of Le Mans 2 weeks ago, a Jordan for Gachot, a Lotus for Herbert. Row 11, Olivier Griard of France in the Fun Metal Ford next to the Lola of Aguri Suzuki of Japan. Row 12, Eric Bernard of France in the 2nd Lola next to the Brabham of Martin Brundle of Great Britain. And on the final row 13, Michele Alboreto of Italy in the Footwork Ford, Porsche having pulled its engines out of Formula One competition, and J.J. Lehto of Finland in the Dallara with Judd V10 power. Those who missed the cut, Mika Hakkinen of Finland for Lotus, the AGSs of Fabrizio Barbaza and Gabriella Tarquini of Italy, and Stefan Johansson of Sweden in the 2nd Footwork machine. Those who failed to pre-qualify on Friday morning, Emanuele Pirro of Italy for Dallara, the entire Modena Lambo team of Nicola Larini and Eric Van de Poel, and Pedro Chavez of Portugal in the Coloni. The cars have rolled off to warm up. We'll get down to John Bizignano now in the pit lane with final thoughts. John?
Well, Bob, I'll tell you one thing I like about this track is that I'm going to be able to see a race for the first time in some years, actually, thanks to the giant screen at the end of the pit lane. Thank you, French organizers. The grid is in very good shape. We have Ayrton Senna in the T car and Piquet in the T car. That really shouldn't matter too much to them. The Jordan team hopes they have fixed a fuel pressure problem on the Gachot car. And Alesi, he had a little problem this morning with the gearbox. He says it was okay when he went around to come to the grid, but of course under race conditions that could give up. The biggest problem is the situation that happened last night. The organizers washed this track several times. They washed all the grip out of it. This morning for the warm-up, everyone was slipping and sliding, trying to change settings to find out the fastest way to set up the car to handle a very slippery surface. The pit stops will be fast and furious, probably around lap 25 or 30. There's going to be a lot of action on the track, and especially here in the pits. It's going to be one heck of a race, guys.
I certainly agree with you there, John. A massive crowd on hand here. Well over 100,000 people, I would guess. Tens of thousands more pressing in at the gates. And Magny Cours, David, is a long way from anywhere.
Well, as Michele Alboreto said, it's right in the middle of nowhere, no hotels. Access is very poor to this track, but the people were trying to get here, and we must have passed 100,000 of them ourselves this morning. I did find that this washing the track that they did last night is the most extraordinary thing I think I've ever heard of. These guys spend 3 solid days here thrashing round and round, setting these cars up for this track, which, like any track, NASCAR fans know, the groove moves. It does on these sort of tracks as well. They get their cars set to the conditions as they finally exist late on Saturday afternoon, and then they come and wash it, and everybody this morning was completely messed up. And the McLarens particularly, I believe, are having major problems with front tires draining in just a few laps.
We should report that not all of the French involved in this race are necessarily pulling in the same direction. The organizers were fined $20,000 US by the sanctioning body, the FIA, because the doctors here went on strike because they were missing lunch, and that forced one of Friday's qualifying sessions to be delayed by 30 minutes. That's the way it goes, folks.
Well, lunch in France is a very, very important part of the day. I sort of fully concur with that part of French life.
Through the final corner, Alesi onto the front straightaway. You see the field pulling into position. 26 cars ready for the green light in round 7 of the series. We'll wait for the green flag at the back of the grid. Turn up the volume and enjoy the start.
And keep your eye on Al Prost on the right-hand side of the screen there, starting in second spot, but he wants to win this race badly.
John Alesi coming wide on the right side. We've had accidents in each of the supporting races in this first corner. The leaders are through cleanly. No, at the back of the pack we have a tangle.
Who did I tell you to watch? At
least one car off the racetrack. Our pictures coming to us from French television. Our host broadcaster for this French Grand Prix.
This is that long right-hander. Down to the... Oh!
Bertrand Gachot in one of the Jordan Fords. He's had so much trouble this weekend, lots of fuel pressure problems, coming in after having won the 24 Hours of Le Mans sports car race 2 weeks ago. How quickly they fall.
So there you have it, Prost going into that long 180 degree. It's a very tight corner, this second gear. Patrese right behind him, who starts off in the front row.
I believe that's Mansell behind him. Patrese made a terrible start, dropped back a long way. We're looking out the back of Nelson Piquet's Benetton. The Benetton cars and the Williams cars carrying our onboard cameras today. That is Gianni Morbidelli in the Minardi. Right there is his Benetton teammate, Roberto Moreno.
Can't get much closer than that. You see those sparks out the back of those cars. We're going to see a lot of those sparks this afternoon. The surface here is pretty smooth, so everybody's running a lot of downforce, and they're running very close to the ground. And so as soon as they pick up speed, they start to trail the most amazing shower of sparks. But of course, as you see, as soon as they lose speed, the ground effect goes away, the cars lift up, and obviously the sparks stop. But as soon as they pick up real speed, those sparks are really going to fly.
Alain Prost in the lead and pulling away from this field. Quickest in the morning warm-up. Nigel Mansell is next, then Ayrton Senna, Gerhard Berger, and it looks like John Alesi. Alain Prost celebrating the 10th anniversary of his very first Formula One win when he was driving for the Renault factory team here in France. 5 times he has won his home Grand Prix. 6 would set an all-time Formula One record.
There you see the 2 Ligiers, the 2 blue cars there. I'm not sure which is which yet, but those, of course, Thierry Boutsen did a cracking time this morning. This, of course, is their home circuit. The factory is based right here at Magny Cours, and so they do all their testing here.
Rocketing down through one of the tight chicanes, which they're taking in about 4th gear. Very, very fast. Lots of G-loading. There is a Lacey in the red car. Here comes Nelson Piquet, followed by Roberto Moreno, Morbidelli, and then Riccardo Patrese. He's got to be in about 10th position. Our electronic timing and scoring system hasn't yet posted the entire field. Very tight right-hander onto the first fitting.
That's a shame for Riccardo. It's the 5th pole position of his career, and of course this race, in all places, is vital to capitalize on that front row position at least, because it's going to be difficult this afternoon for these cars to pass.
This is the new Ferrari 643 that has tested just 2 days coming into this race. It's pretty much the same old Ferrari from the driver's seat back, but the front end radically different. They have raised the nose, which is now the design trend in Formula One, changed the front wing a little bit, the suspension, things of that nature. Prost says it is an entirely different car. Nigel Mansell now beginning to close the gap.
Nigel closing up on Prost, and both of them definitely putting daylight between themselves and Senna and Berger in the 2 McLaren Hondas.
John mentioned it from the pits. We expect lots of tire stops today. Teams going with the softest compound they feel they can handle, but we expect them to have to change tires at least once on a very high grip circuit. And it is a very warm, humid day here in Magny Cours. About 85 degrees. There you see a shirt sleeve crowd, and a big one. We'll take a quick time out and return to the French Grand Prix. Stay with us. Championship. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of France is brought to you by Acura Automobiles. Experience precision-crafted performance. By Mobil 1 Synthetic Motor Oil. Isn't your car worth the extra protection? And by Olympic, the family of products that protect your home from damage rain can do. Olympic stops the rain. Back live at Magny Cours. There you see Alain Prost in the new Ferrari 643, 12-cylinder power, well over 700 horsepower. He has opened up the gap once again over Nigel Mansell. Behind comes Senna, Berger, Alesi, Piquet, filling out the top 6 points-paying positions, followed by Roberto Moreno, Gianni Morbidelli, Riccardo Patrese in 9th spot after starting from the pole. Stefano Martino rounds out the top 10. Then Pierluigi Martini, Andrea De Cesaris, Maurizio Gugelmin, Terry Boutsen, Eric Komath, Satoru Nakajima, Ivan Capelli, Aguri Suzuki, Eric Bernard, and J.J. Leto, your top 20.
Now, of course, this is one of those races that Alain Prost absolutely revels in, because today is going to be tire wear day, tire conservation day. And he is just an absolute master at nursing his cars through situations like that. I would say that second only to him at the moment would be Ayrton Senna himself, who's a tremendous car manager as well. But both these guys have got their real work cut out today because of that extraordinary thing they did last night in washing this track. And so they're going to have to try and work all this out as they go along in the race. So if we get a chance, we want to keep our eye, especially on the front tires, which is giving all these guys a problem. I think John's got some comments on the tires. John?
Well, David, I wanted to ask you, in talking to both Pirelli and Goodyear, they said that the person leading the race has a lot less tire wear because he's not trying to go in on every single spot to try and gain ground. Is that what you found in your experience, that when you lead, you can actually be more conservative and save those tires? And Alain Prost is the best at that anyway.
Well, of course, at the moment, they don't seem to be having much pressure either. Nigel Mansell is behind him and not an immediate threat, and both these drivers are probably conserving their tires as best they can, but the McLaren boys are slipping fast out of contention. They're 8 seconds behind after just 4 laps of racing. So at the moment it doesn't look as if anybody's going to run the tires off their cars by trying too hard.
Here are the gaps through the top 6. Mansell trails Alain Prost by 2.4 seconds. Then it's a full 8.5 seconds back to 3rd place, Ayrton Senna. Gerhard Berger a half second behind his teammate. Nearly a full second back to Jean Alesi, and 5 seconds further in arrears, Nelson Piquet in 6th. So the field really stringing out early.
Which I must say, I'm extremely surprised because, for instance, this circuit somewhat reminds me of Mid-Ohio, which is also very difficult to pass on. And their big slogan used to be most competitive track in the USA. What it really meant was it's damn difficult to pass here, so everybody bunched up behind. And I thought that's really what we'd see today. I thought we'd see a very close race, not much passing, but I thought we'd see everybody all over each other because of the track holds the field together. And it seems to be, in fact, just exactly the opposite happening.
There's the best battle thus far going out of your picture. Gerhard Berger with Jean Alesi all over him, at least in the top 10. That's the best battle. There are the Marlboro McLaren teammates, and the team is very forthright about it. At a press conference earlier this week, team boss Ron Dennis said, "We do not have the best package in Formula One right now," and they laid it at the feet of the Honda engine. Alain Prost just ripping in the early laps here. The car really working well on full tanks. And keep in mind, this is the first time that Alain Prost, the three-time world champion, has seen the lead in a Grand Prix all season. This is the 7th race.
Of course, he is the all-time winner in Formula One with 44 wins. Of course, if he could make this one, that'll be 45. And, of course, it would be particularly sweet for him because his first ever victory was in the French Grand Prix 10 years ago.
And there's Gerhard Berger dropping out. Gerhard Berger is on the grass. He dropped out after just a handful of laps in Mexico. He dropped out after just a handful of laps in Canada. Gerhard Berger has the worst luck.
And doesn't he have that terrible, dejected look about it?
Remember when he was with Ferrari and he had a string of about 14 races without scoring a finish?
And I don't think it's any reflection on his driving ability or lack of, or the way he treats his machinery. A lot of it is just down to absolute plain bad luck. Or as he would say, well, we'll see. Maybe he did make a mistake. We haven't found out yet. But no,
it just lost the drive. The gearbox is the weak link in the McLaren cars, having said what I already did about the Honda engine.
Whoa, and there's the other Jordan. That's
Andrea de Cesaris has looped it.
Now he's trying to loop it again.
That's not particularly good for tire wear, but it'll get him back in the show. Andrea de Cesaris looking for points in 3 straight races for the first time in more than a decade of Formula One. Oh, there's Pierluigi Martini going around first.
That's what caused the
clouded Nakajima. Now, how did Andrea de Cesaris, who's already gone through the picture, wind up looping it? Well, good luck there with a huge crowd here in France.
And that was in front of the biggest part of the crowd, right at the hairpin. Said, if you're going to do that sort of thing, let's do it where a lot of people can see it.
Coming into
at the same place. This is the same hairpin.
It's called Adelaide. All of the corners here named for other stops on the Formula One circuit, although there is not a corner named Phoenix, we should point out. Alain Prost continues to lead as he has from the green light. Action continues live from France in just a moment. The Loire region of France, justifiably famous for some of the finest wines in the world, will soon be famous as the home of the Grand Prix of France, round 7 on the Formula One World Driving Championship. We are live at the Magny Cours circuit. Bob Barcia and David Hobbs with you. John Bisignano is in the pit lane. There is your overall leader, Alain Prost, in the new Ferrari, new and largely untested. Flashing around, you can see the marbles, the excess tire rubber that's already beginning to pile up in the corners. Gerhard Berger already out of this race in McLaren, and we've been seeing cars banging wheels around this circuit. Mansell beginning to close in a little bit now.
Mansell hanging right there, just a 2.5 second deficit. Senna, cool, 17 seconds already behind Nigel Mansell.
We have 10 laps complete. There are 72 scheduled in this event. And you can see the racing line. Outside is where the rubber is coming off these tires. Very high grip circuit. Let's get a comment from John in the pits.
Bob and David, Gerhard Berger walked back to the pits. He asked not to be interviewed. He's very disappointed, not a little disappointed. He said the engine just stopped on him. He lost all power whatsoever. Maybe the reason that Ayrton Senna is falling back so quickly is that they were very much affected by this washing of the track. This morning's warm-up, he was only 9th fastest, and they never found the right setting to get the speed back into this car on this very smooth and slick circuit.
You had a look there at Ayrton Senna and the other McLaren. There goes Jean Alesi in the second new Ferrari. Alesi had gearbox problems in the morning warm-up. Cars reach 189 miles an hour on the fast backstretch here at Magny Cours. Just about 90 miles an hour at the start-finish line. It's a real drag race off that final corner.
Lacey, as you can see, just a tick of a watch behind Ayrton Senna. That's where Ayrton Senna spun yesterday coming across the line. I think really he nailed it coming across. He would never have done that if it hadn't been a qualifying lap, because as you can see, the timing line is right there. Normally he would have just lifted out a bit, but I think he just kept his foot nailed on that V12 Honda power, and it spun him round, but of course it did the right thing. It got him across the line, which is what he was worried about.
Right here, the cars press at about 190 miles an hour, and then hard on the brakes through what looks like a washboard section there for this hard right-hand second gear corner.
Senna using all the road, and you know, we've seen him so many times on those qualifying laps where you think, oh gosh, you know, he's not trying very much this lap, because he doesn't use all the road, but he's using it all today. He's really trying to make this car hustle along, or he's hustling this car along.
A bit like Rick Mears in the Indy Marlboro car. Ayrton Senna doesn't use any more of the road than he has to. The quickest man in Formula One has definitely got some problems right now. He comes in as the points leader with 44 to 20 for Ricardo Patrese, 16 for Nelson Piquet, 13 for Nigel Mansell, 11 for Alain Prost, and 10 for Gerhard Berger. There are 10 points for the win, followed by 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1 down to 6th place. And Alain Prost is looking for 10 today. He could move up a lot from 5th to perhaps as high as 2nd in the championship.
His tires on that shot there don't look too bad. As you said, there's a lot of rolled up rubber getting around already, which is not a good sign, because there's been no traffic on this track today except what we're seeing now, since it was washed last night. So the tires must be tearing up. None of that stuff, in other words, has been left from yesterday afternoon.
There's Nigel Mansell, the subject of a lot of silly season rumors. We're at about halfway. Our next event in 2 weeks will be the British Grand Prix, where Nigel will certainly be the star. The silly season has begun. Where are drivers going next year? Nigel Mansell is one that hasn't made up his mind. Recall that he retired a year ago at the British Grand Prix before re-signing with Williams. But the hot rumor in the pit lane here in France is that Williams and its sponsors are prepared to pony up $23 million to try to entice Ayrton Senna to Williams. It is a rumor, but that's what we're hearing.
Well, there's no doubt that Senna is the man of the moment. He is the fastest driver in the current crop of Grand Prix drivers, probably one of the fastest drivers that there's ever been in the modern era of Formula One driving. And he is certainly on the top of everybody's wish list. And he is just going to hang in there and wait to see what Honda do. They've got their Spec 3 engine that will definitely be at Germany, maybe in Britain next week. And he's just going to see how the relative engine merits work out. There's no doubt that the Renault engine at the moment is strong, extremely strong. As a 10, it's very, very comparable to either the 12 in the Ferrari or certainly the Honda 12. But the Honda people have got a history of really working on these things, working out their problems and coming up with the answer in the end. And I think that Senna will just wait his time and make a decision at the end of the year, which will be based on, A, his ability to win, and of course, B, his ability to possibly make as much as $23 million. I mean, it would cloud the issue just a tad, wouldn't it? How much did you say again? Oh, well, maybe we can see our way clear to doing the year with you guys.
Alain Prost coming around to finish 14 laps. He leads Nigel Mansell by about 2.5 seconds. We have one of the Tyrrells off now at the gravel trap on the backside, the infield portion of the track.
Well and truly dug in, too.
Satoru Nakajima out of the car. Interesting, Tyrrell is the name that has come up in connection with a future Formula One drive possibility for Michael Andretti. McLaren is going to try to keep Ayrton Senna. Gerhard Berger already has a contract. There would be no place for Michael to go, but the Tyrrell also has Honda power. Stay tuned for more on that story. We'll be right back. As Ayrton Senna goes out the bottom of your screen, he is chased by this man, young Jean Alesi, having a little trouble coming together with the Ferrari Mystique. Meanwhile, a former Ferrari driver, now with the McLaren team, is out of the race, and he is with John in the pits.
Gerhard Berger, a very short French Grand Prix for you. What went wrong?
Everything was well. Balance was better than in the warm-up. Engine temperature, everything was on the right level. Suddenly the engine got a big noise, and the engine bar dropped down, and I put out the engine.
Your teammate, Ayrton Senna, is certainly having some trouble keeping pace. You said your handling was okay have you heard any reports about his?
Don't understand the question.
Ayrton Senna, do you think he's having handling problems? He's losing a lot of time.
Yeah, I could go quite easy with Ayrton. I mean, he was just a warm part, he was a little bit quicker. So I think I was on harder tires, I was on B tires, so I was just waiting for some laps more to let the B tires giving some advantage and then to try to overtake him.
Well, now you're going to have to wait till next week, Gerhard. Good luck.
Unfortunately, yes.
Gerhard Berger, one of the really nice guys in Formula One, has really had a tough 1991 thus far.
Interesting, he said he was on harder tires, B tires. That would obviously imply that Ayrton Senna is on the C compound, which may be why he's going a little bit slower now to try not to run those tires off his car too soon. Obviously, he does not want to stop before about lap 25. They want to get those heavy laps, and the cars are full of fuel. They need to get those laps under their belt before they come in and change. No point changing too soon while the car's still got a lot of gas on board. Maybe Prost, in fact, started with the Bs. If he started with Cs and he's maintaining this sort of pace, does not augur too well for Ayrton Senna. Meanwhile, Riccardo Patrese, 35 seconds of lead.
Working lap number 17 of 72 scheduled. It is Prost by 2.2 seconds over Mansell, 25.9 seconds back to Ayrton Senna, 2.5 to Alesi, 6.2 to Patrese, another 18.8 to Piquet, followed by Moreno, Gugelmin, and Modena in pretty quick order.
And now on lap 18, so less than 10 laps, we're going to start to see some action in the pits. When you see those tires, for instance, there you see his right front tire looks a bit sick as he goes down some of those corners. When we see the cars head on the straight, the tires look okay, but I think everybody's going to come in.
Now pulling up to lap traffic, that is Johnny Herbert, the Le Mans winner from 2 weeks ago, in the White Lotus, just ahead of Alain Prost.
So you see one of there's Alboreto in the footwork, now with the Cosworth, as you said earlier, the Porsche, people taking a sabbatical here while they work on the engine and giving arrows themselves or footwork a chance to work on their chassis. Johnny Herbert tucked in behind the race leader, lap down already in 17 laps.
Another good look there at the footwork car. Alex Caffey, who's supposed to be driving with that team and who hurt himself in a road accident in Italy just before the Canadian Grand Prix, says he is fit to drive but has not been allowed in as Michele Alboreto got very close to the leader Prost there. In fact, he took the footwork team to court here in France, trying to force them to give him back his ride, arguing that he was fit enough to drive. The team refused. The French judge agreed, saying that it was covered by English law and not French law, so he would not decide the case. Stefan Johansson failed to qualify.
Yeah, that rolled-up rubber you're talking about, and all that has come from just 17 laps on these cars. So this clean track is really chewing these tires up on these cars. This is that long right-hander, Estoril, as we said, all these corners here named after other tracks. Down the long back straight, even that's not straight. It has that little kink in the middle of it, down to the hairpin here.
Now a lot of traffic ahead as Nigel Mansell pulls around Michele Alboreto. There is Prost, the French TV cameraman, absolutely in love with the boy this weekend. Olivier Grouillard, the next man in line in the dark Fond Metal car.
Olivier Grouillard definitely top of the unpopularity list yesterday afternoon. His engine blew, and he did a whole lap laying smoke, oil. The car was alternately dropping smoke and or on fire for a whole lap. His team screaming at him to stop. He knowing that actually it wasn't a bad lap.
He said, I didn't know I was on fire. The car was absolutely smoldering, killing mosquitoes all the way around the racetrack. It looked like an air show at ground level, and he said he didn't know he was on fire. Alain Prost has passed Grouillard, and he will now close in as you look at Nigel Mansell. You get a look at the Lion of England here, having a great run for Williams thus far. The green car of Andrea de Cesaris goes out the bottom of your picture.
Doesn't look as if Andrea de Cesaris is going to be in the points today. Great race a couple of weeks ago. Nigel Mansell. Now we're on board with Nigel Mansell. This is that long right-hander.
We are just ahead. Up to 190 miles an hour, right through this section right here under the walkover bridge. Picture breaking up. It's a very hazy and cloudy day here at Magny Cours. It's the helicopter that bounces these signals back to the earth. Probably cannot get up high enough to chase these cars around the track and get a solid signal. Mansell now safely past Griard. We are lapping traffic. You're watching live the French Grand Prix here on ESPN.
Lapping traffic here is difficult for the lead drivers and difficult for the lapped, because they have a difficult track to follow and keep their eye on, and at the same time they have to watch the mirror like a hawk to see what's happening behind them. There you see Griard, there's Nigel Mansell coming down to the start-finish corner, and of course Prost himself has got to get around this man here, Andrea de Cesaris, coming down to the chicane, and the Lycée, which is the tight right-hander onto the start-finish line straight.
14 cars remain on the lead lap. 15 when Andrea de Cesaris is lapped, as he inevitably will be. There will be 14 cars on the lead lap of the 26th that started the French Grand Prix. We'll take a quick timeout and be right back. Years ago, plus 2 days, Alain Prost, the winningest driver in Formula One history, won his very first, and appropriately it was the French Grand Prix at Dijon, France, just about an hour's drive or so from here in Magny Cours. As you can see, Nigel Mansell has passed Alain Prost for the lead. We'll try to bring that to you in replay. It always happens when we're in commercial. There's another look, coming down to a sharp right-hand hairpin. Ooh, and Prost gets sideways almost into Andrea de Cesaris, and the green car to the right of your screen gives up the corner.
Well, I think if we could retrace that just a little bit further back, we would see that the reason that Nigel Mansell managed to get Prost there was that he was almost certainly held up by de Cesaris just previous to the pass. As we were saying just before we went to break, passing and being passed here is difficult.
The pass came on lap 20 of 72 as Nigel Mansell now tries to open up some breathing room over Alain Prost. And Prost, we will reiterate, is a very difficult man to keep behind you in the French Grand Prix. He has won it 5 times. Mansell, one of only 2 other men in this field to have won this race, the other being Nelson Piquet. Once again, 2 cars with that semi-automatic transmission running up front. Into and out of the Adelaide hairpin goes Nigel Mansell.
More lap traffic in front of him. I think that's J.J. Leto, in fact, in the very much Ferrari look-alike Dallara with the Judd V10. Not going quite as well as we thought. Got off to such a great start. Here we see it from Nigel's view. The Dallara in front of him as they sweep through. This is down towards the Imola complex. See the ground swoops away there. Up again to the Chateau d'Eau right-hander.
Nigel sweeps past J.J. Leto. Prost being held up slightly by the red car ahead of him. Leto will move aside on the pit straightaway and let Prost by. The Williams team has come good so quickly and so well. Nigel Mansell probably should have won the Canadian Grand Prix 2 races back. He was going too slowly, the team decided, when the engine dramatically quit within 1 mile of the checkered flag. Oh, there's a lot of traffic right there.
In front of now. Nigel may decide it's lap 23. It's just a tad early. But if they're going to come up against a bunch of dicing do-or-diers towards the end of the field here, they may decide that this is an opportune time to pull in, change the tires, and not get involved in what is a big dice for these guys in front through the 180 degree.
Let's see if we can stay with him now as he does overtake these cars, and it may be a real interesting ride.
That Renault V10 screaming away. Obviously Renault hoping like mad that they can win.
Stefano Modena just ahead in the Tyrrell.
He squeezed past one of those slower cars there.
Aguri Suzuki, I believe, in the LaRousse. The LaRousse team is now officially bankrupt, but they have found some sponsorship, enough, they say, to finish the season. And that's good news for Formula One. We talked about Ayrton Senna possibly being enticed with $23 million worth of retainer for next year. There are a number of smaller teams in Formula One with a lot of financial difficulties.
Nigel working this traffic to perfection. He squeezed his way past those cars in a difficult part of the track, between the penultimate corner and the chicane and the last right-hander. Managed to squeeze off 3 of them and has left Alan Prost out in the cold just a little bit, down to the hairpin.
That was Mark Blundell in the Brabham that Mansell got by first before Modena closed the door on him. Modena running in the 11th position, so that leaves 10 cars on the lead lap as Nigel Mansell is just smoking around this 2.6-mile racetrack. You a little surprised at the pace, David, given that they don't know what the tires are going to do?
I'm very surprised at the pace. I'm very surprised at the disparity of the pace. I mean, lapping everybody down to 10th place in only 24 laps into a 70-yard lap race. The leaders are setting an incredibly quick pace compared to everybody else. There you see. No, you don't see it.
Nigel Mansell came in from the warm-up complaining about a very soft brake pedal, so the brakes are really getting a workout on that Williams Renault. Now there is Eric Bernard, I believe, just ahead of Nigel.
Eric Bernard in one of the LaRousse Lolas, and I think in front of him is his teammate. No.
A little late with that blue flag. Nigel was already side by side with him.
Well, using the draft to its best advantage, you want to stay behind the car absolutely as long as possible and duck out. I mean, it looks pretty hairy, but it's all under control, really.
Okay. Let's just see how close it was when Nigel went by that car.
Right under the wing.
Boy, with those big gumball Goodyears at every corner, that is awfully close. Keep in mind, he's also doing about 150 miles an hour right there.
On lap 26, must be getting ready for a tire stop. Picture goes away as he goes under that bridge. There's the chicane.
Mansell is the leader, followed by Prost, Senna, Alesi, Ricardo Patrese, Nelson Piquet, then Mauricio Gugelmin, Roberto Moreno, Pierluigi Martini, Eric Bernard, Aguri Suzuki, Mark Blundell, Stefano Modena, J.J. Leto, Andre De Cesaris, Johnny Herbert, Olivier Gouillard, Michele Alboreto, Terry Boutsen, and Eric Comas. You see one of the Benetton cars, that's Roberto Moreno, who had a lot of overheating problems in the morning warm-up. Pierluigi Martini, one of the LaRousse cars, making way there. This track is notorious for being flat. Oh, we've got a Williams pit stop. Here's John.
Ricardo Patrese is the first Williams driver in the pit. Of course, his teammates leading at the moment. The front tires looking perfectly good shape, but they are picking up an awful lot of rubber trouble. Ricardo Patrese wraps that Renault very high. They're set up all again, ready for the leader to come in. There's going to be a lot of action down here, fellas, in a few laps.
Okay, John, stay with it. Let us know when you get your next stop. Ricardo Patrese must have left the pit exit there at about 130 miles an hour. The pits are very dangerous here. We've had 2 mechanics, or 1 mechanic and 1 photographer, that were hit by the wheels of flying cars in the pit lane in practice for this race. Both are okay, we're happy to report. But it's a very dangerous job John is doing down there. We'll be right back to France. Back live at the Grand Prix of France here on ESPN. You saw Ayrton Senna. He has already pitted. John is with Alain Prost.
I'm only going to be here for a few seconds, guys. These guys are the masters. 6-second Ferrari pit stop. The car was in and out of here, up perfectly, down perfectly. I'm looking at the rear tires. They definitely have had a little bit of wheel spin, accelerating out of these slower corners, but everything looks in good shape. But obviously, the handling wasn't quite what they wanted.
Thank you, John. There goes one of the Dallaras. You can see just how similar to the Ferrari it looks. That is J.J. Leto, the young Finn, protege of former world champion K.K. Rosberg. Now, I want you to take another look at Ayrton Senna's pit stop that came during the commercial. He makes his way in. This was another brilliant stop. Watch the jack that the McLaren team is using. It's not your traditional Well, I'm afraid you can't see it from this angle. I thought we were going to have another angle. They have a jack with a handle on it. It looks like some kind of a pneumatically operated jack.
Very quick lift jack and an incredibly quick stop. There you see one of the Ferraris. I suspect that's Prost catching up with that Dallara, absolutely hauling it into that 180-degree corner.
Alain Prost flashes by with working lap number 29 of 72. Nigel Mansell is the leader. Alain Prost still runs in second position, but well back. Nigel Mansell will no doubt have to stop. Now keep in mind, he may have that harder B compound Goodyear tire on. Goodyear and Pirelli are the two tires in Formula One. Pirelli got their first victory in several years in in Canada, when Nelson Piquet came through for them and Nigel Mansell had that tremendous heartbreak. But it appears as though the Goodyear tire is the one to have here in France. It is Mansell by 17 seconds over Prost. Jean Alesi 11 seconds back. In back of his teammate Prost, obviously. Ayrton Senna dropped from third to fourth with his pit stop. He is 14 seconds behind Alesi.
I must say that I find this amount of rubber that's lying around this track quite extraordinary. Now, also bear in mind that when these tires get hot and sticky, when they're doing all this lapping of traffic, and they have to go offline just a bit, they run through all that stuff that's lying on the ground. And of course, these hot, sticky tires just pick it up. And when John said the car of Senna, the first car that stopped, had tire pickup, that's exactly what it is. All that stuff, you drive through it and it sticks to the tires, and it's a menace because it loses the grip of the tire, it puts the tire out of balance, and Mansell just keeps on humming right along there.
You can see from these pictures, if you look closely, the stuff actually bouncing on the racetrack ahead of Nigel Mansell. Tire pieces just flying everywhere. I was at a race at Sears Point Raceway in California a few years ago, and a piece of tire compound about the size of your fist came whistling past my head working in the pits. It comes off in huge chunks as it falls up on the track. Oh, with Nigel Mansell, that's Mauricio Gugelmin, one of the Leighton House cars up ahead.
I think Nigel thought he was going to let him through there, but he didn't. So now he has to follow him through this twisty bit. Now here would be an ideal... Oh, no.
Jean Alesi is in the pits. Here's John.
They are having a little bit of trouble with the right rear, but boy, these Ferrari people have been practicing this all week long. They take great pride in it. They used to be considered a bit of a fire drill with Ferrari, but no one is faster in this pit lane than the Ferrari team, changing 4 tires.
Another fault, I think, with this track is that horrendous pit exit. You come out of the pit exit from the left, the car is going right before it swings left into the first corner, and it comes right onto the apex of one of the fastest corners on this track.
There was a huge chunk of tire rubber that stuck to the racetrack as Jean Alesi went by. Mansell is coming in. Take it, John.
Has reached his stopping area. He came in just a little bit hot. One of the visor goes off. A little bit of problem with the right front. Everyone else is ready to go. The arms are up. Oh my gosh, they're struggling. Nigel Mansell, RPMs 12 grand as he goes out of here. In all kinds of, he warmed up those rears, folks.
And that's what I mean about that pit exit.
Broke my new watch. He blew my new watch off my arm down here.
John Bizignano having a pretty typical Formula One day down there in the pits. Nigel Mansell comes rocketing back out. Keep in mind, 12,000 RPM, and these engines go higher to 13, 14, 15,000 in the case of the Lamborghini. Well over 200 revolutions per second. 100 spark plug firings per second. And on the Renault V10 in the car of Nigel Mansell right there, the valve gear is run by compressed air, not by springs and connecting rods and so forth. Compressed air, computer controlled. Nigel Mansell has held his lead, working lap number 32 over Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, Jean Alesi, and Riccardo Patrese. We'll be back to France in a moment. I thought Nigel Mansell was able to get back out of the pits in time to be the leader in this French Grand Prix. He is not. Alain Prost and the red Ferrari at the center of your screen has taken over the lead, but Nigel is closing in. He is 3.5 seconds back. He knocked off 1.5 seconds in that last lap. But Alain Prost has set fast lap of the race. He did it 4 laps ago, 1 minute 20.5 seconds. Compare that with the pole lap of 1 minute 14.8 seconds by Riccardo Patrese.
There you see him going around Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi, which now, of course, has Ferrari power. Both these drivers, Prost, Mansell, just a few seconds behind him, getting involved in this big tussle here towards the back end of the field.
A different nose line on that Ferrari, much more humped than it was previously. They have stiffened up the front suspension, and it took a little bit more room. They have raised the nose, which is the new trend in Formula One design.
Roberto Moreno in one of the Benettons just in front of him, V8 power. Of course, next year, as we heard on the announcement from Montreal, they will have 12-cylinder Ford power next year. But that team is in problems. They've lost their designer, John Barnard, who was one of the key features of that team. He's gone. We don't know where he's going to come down yet, but he's not there. And I think they need somebody of that caliber to keep that team near the forefront.
It is a team full of strong egos, the Benetton squad. They have lost their chief mechanic, Nigel Stepney, as well, who will service the team at the British Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time and then move on. No one knows where.
That was the view from Moreno as Prost drew away. Now Moreno, behind him is Pierluigi Martini in that Ferrari engine Minardi, and right behind him is Nigel Mansell, desperate to get around to both those guys so he can come to grips with Alain Prost, who, having shaken them off, has now got a relatively clear bit of road in front of him, but I say relatively.
We are approaching halfway. Let's get an update now on the tire situation up and down the pits with John Bisignano.
Bob, we have been hanging out at the top 2 Pirelli teams, that being Tyrrell and, of course, the Benetton team. They haven't even taken their tire blankets off the tires yet. They went out on the very hard GF9 tire. That's the hardest tire that they brought to this racetrack, much harder than the C compound that most of the Goodyear teams are using. So right now, they seem to have found the right combination. Right now, they might be planning to stay out for the rest of the event. That would be an advantage.
Well, that's certainly the way Pirelli has come through in the past. Gerhard Berger won with Pirelli non-stop in Mexico about 5 years ago. And they seem to be working better than they did in practice and qualifying the past 2 days. The big crowd enjoying the French Grand Prix, and we'll be back with more in a moment. Near the village of Magny Cours in central France lies a brand new circuit dedicated to the memory of French racing legend Jean Béra and site of round 7 of the World Driving Championship. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of France is brought to you by Suzuki. Your Suzuki dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. And by today's Duracell, the copper top battery. 6 cars remain, make that 7 cars still on the lead lap of the 26th that started the Grand Prix of France. The sun has come out through the haze and is heating up that racetrack. Alain Prost, the overall race leader, has taken over fast lap once again, 1:19.9. First lap we've seen under 1 minute 20 seconds. The blue and yellow
Mansell having to dispose of Maurizio Gugelmin now in the Leighton House. Leighton House with the Ilmor V10 engine. We're hoping for a good run here, because the Leighton House traditionally likes smooth circuits. Well, they don't come any smoother than this, but they're still not having what I'd call a great...
Mark Blundell with the Brabham with the Yamaha power on the pit straightaway has clouded the wall.
Now then, that's going to lead to a problem. What to do with that car, because it's right on the exit.
Blundell was in 11th place at the time. John saw the wreck.
Blundell came out of the last corner onto the pit straight, very, very hot, very fast. He went up on the curb, and the car went into the air and all the way down the pit lane, showering all kinds of debris over the timers and the signalers. Right now, he is out of the car and doing well, and no one along the pit lane, miraculously, is hurt.
Well, you get a wheel up on the curb. These very stiffly sprung cars, if you get it right up on the curb, you've got to be very quick to try and keep the thing tracking right. Otherwise, it pulls it into and more up on the curb. As we watch Nigel Mansell
passing the scene of the wreck.
Out of the picture.
Brabham, one of those teams that's in financial difficulty I mentioned earlier. There's Alain Prost, the race leader. His Ferrari mechanics got him in and out of the pits. Nigel Mansell bobbled a little bit during his pit stop, and as a result, Prost is in the lead, but only just. Nelson Piquet, the three-time world champion, letting his fellow triple world champ by.
You see, this is, to go back to what John was saying earlier on about the tyres, this is one of those quandaries we're in. The Pirelli people have chosen to go with a pretty hard compound tyre, and they're going to be able to do the race without stopping. But you've only got to watch the way that Prost and Mansell are disposing of both Moreno and Piquet to see if it's not paying off, because they're going so slowly. They'd be better to be going faster and have made a quick stop.
The Benetton cars were 19th and 23rd in the morning warm-up. They have not been fast, relatively speaking, here in France.
I think they're a bit down for power with the V8, and I don't think their tyres really do suit this track all that well.
There you see where Marc Blundell went in with his Brabham.
That should be a fairly substantial fine from the French organisers for putting all that black mark on their nice white wall. They like to fine people over here.
I wouldn't be that course marshal who climbed over to wave that yellow flag in front of the wreck. I believe I'd hold that flag over the railing. We've already seen what happens when somebody hits that curb and comes sliding down the pit wall. And you have nowhere to go if that should happen again.
Prost still maintaining about a 2-second, just a fraction over there. We see Thierry Boutsen coming into the hairpin. Thierry did very well this morning, third fastest in the warm-up, but we have a funny feeling that that might have been put on for President Mitterrand and his entourage, and of course the huge French crowd that had already gathered here and was gathering from 5 o'clock this morning, rather than for anything else. And he probably could have even had qualifying tyres and not much fuel in the car, because it was the best he'd been all weekend. And of course currently he's in 18th spot, 2 laps down.
We are past halfway, and the race looks just like it did at the beginning. Alain Prost being chased hard by Nigel Mansell. Ayrton Senna is third, followed by Jean Alesi, Riccardo Patrese, and Nelson Piquet. You're on board live at the Magny Cours circuit in France with what is now officially the fastest car on the racetrack. Nigel Mansell in his Williams Renault has set fast lap on lap 40. We are now working lap 42. Alain Prost just ahead. Nigel Mansell doing everything in his considerable powers to run the Frenchman down.
A great display being put on by both these guys, and of course the French crowd not quite sure what they want to win here, because Nigel Mansell driving the Renault engine, and of course Alain Prost, the favourite son of France, so a very torn crowd. But as you can see, Nigel is really making some ground up now on Alain Prost as they come through those S's down to the 180 degree. There's the Dallara, or is that
That's a replay of the Dallara of J.J. Leto going off the racetrack.
Tire.
Lost it entirely. There's the gap, first to second in the French Grand Prix. The red Ferrari followed by the blue, yellow, and white Williams.
Nigel certainly winding him in. Alain Prost now coming up on Thierry Boutsen, who we were talking of just a few moments ago. Nigel is obviously quicker. He needs to be very careful with his tyres, because he has got half the race to go yet. We've only just gone over the halfway point, so there's no point in rushing this little job. But he is obviously going to be able to catch Al Prost up. And this might be just right where it is here. In fact, is that Boutsen or is that Komar?
I believe it is Terry.
Ligier changed and hopefully improved for this race. Went pretty well in practice, not badly in qualifying, extremely well this morning, but of course, unfortunately, back to its true form probably this afternoon. Now the gap, virtually nothing between Prost and Mansell. Now the thing is, on this circuit, he's going to be finding the place to pass him, and it'll almost certainly be traffic induced.
Now, as you watch these two prepare to join in battle as Mansell tries to pass Prost, one of the great issues in Formula One right now is dangerous driving. The FIA, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, or something therelike, has issued a statement to the stewards, clerks of the course, race directors, and so forth, that they're going to be watching the passing maneuvers, moving through traffic and so forth, drivers in close combat, looking for dangerous driving, and they're threatening to ban drivers from 1 or more races if you are tried and convicted of having been a dangerous driver.
Well, you won't be tried, or you'll be convicted, but you won't be tried, of course. They'll just arbitrarily say you're out. And apparently the contention comes from the Mexican Grand Prix, which everybody felt was an absolutely dazzling race and no one had any problem with it at all from the driver's side and or a spectator. And the query is, if they're complaining about that race, you obviously have no idea what they're able to come up with next. It seems, as usual with FISA, of course, it's totally arbitrary and no recourse and no appeal and no nothing.
The FISA, the FISA, is the sporting arm of the FIA, based in Paris, France. So officialdom is in its flower here in Magny Cours as Nigel Mansell tries to close up on Alain Prost in the red Ferrari.
Both drivers using the curbs.
Ricardo Patrese says the Williams is a car that works well even on bumpy racetracks. In fact, it is superior to anything else on a bumpy racetrack. On a smooth track like this one, the McLaren and the Ferrari have the potential to be close.
Although Senna at the moment is 33 seconds off this battling duo. Behind him by 2.5 seconds is John Alesi in the second Ferrari, and Patrese is 20 seconds behind him. So he must have had some sort of severe handling problem. Probably they made a change as a result of the track being newly cleaned this morning, and whatever they did, they've gone just the wrong way. Doesn't have to be much. And suddenly there they are, 30 seconds out of the lead.
How smooth is this racetrack? The mechanics say they can use 4 times the spring rate or spring power that they used on the very, very bumpy circuit at Mexico City just a few weeks ago.
Which allows them to run the car very, very close to the ground. And, of course, it makes it a lot easier on the driver. There we are down to the hairpin now. There's some traffic. And I'm sure that Mansell is going to use that traffic to his best advantage to try and make a pass on Prost.
Olivier Gouillard, the car just ahead of this man, Alain Prost. Gouillard about to go 2 laps down. Keep in mind, this is a battle of last year's Ferrari teammates, Prost and Mansell. And Mansell has been somewhat outspoken that he thinks Alain Prost basically took his drive away from him at Ferrari. Took the team over, made Ferrari his own team, did Alain Prost, in the mind of Nigel Mansell.
Mansell comes up on Gouillard. Gouillard has had a number of complaints before from other drivers about being difficult to pass. He balked him a little bit there, but nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that you could expect him not to do. It's obviously a lapsed driver can't just suddenly magic himself and his car off the track.
16 cars still in the hunt. The wreck still sitting there on the pit straightaway here at Magny Cours.
Now then, sun's starting to come out. It's been overcast, hot and humid, but the sun is coming out there. That'll heat up the track, which may, of course, induce another tyre stop for this lead group. It's going to be interesting to see if they stop again.
Well, we'll take a quick break so that we can be on when we do have our next set of pit stops. There you see, trying to move a wreck with no wheels on the left side. It's pretty hard to push. We'll be right back. There is Alain Prost, there is Nigel Mansell as you watch live the battle in the French Grand Prix 1991.
And they're coming up across a battling duo, which is Eric Komar and Stefano Modena. Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell Honda, Komar in the Ligier with Lamborghini power. Komar pulls over, lets the 2 leaders through. Oh, lets 1 leader through. Ooh, Eric. He lets the Frenchman through, does not let Nigel Mansell through.
And you know, a lot of the Formula One riders will pick on Komar for just that reason,
and
letting the Frenchman through.
Moves over, lets him. Oh, well, Nigel will have something to say about that.
He may get a fist shaken at him, will Eric Komar.
At the moment, still holding Prost off. Nigel will be getting pretty hot now. He'll probably do one of those duck passes again.
Yep, he waved at him, and it was not to say, how are you enjoying the view, Eric? And now, just ahead, the Tyrrell of Stefano Modena is between this man, Nigel Mansell, and the lead in the French Grand Prix.
Stefano Modena not doing as well as I thought he would do here. It may be that this circuit is just not suited to the Pirelli tyres at all, because normally that Honda Tyrrell makes a good account of itself. Now we see the frustration again as Nigel tries to get around the Honda, which would have approximately the same power as him, but nothing like as quick into the corners as he is.
In a straight line, the Tyrrell just about able... Boy, I can't believe he was passed when he pulled over on that corner. Nigel Mansell, 37 years of age. He'll be 38 in a month's time. Let's take another look at Nigel Mansell's pass on Eric Comas in the Ligier.
Now here you see them coming into the chicane before the pit corner. Comas had pulled over, let Prost through deliberately, shoots away at from the corner, hangs to the left, which would be out of the line, now moves back to the right, which is right on line, and effectively blocked him for the next 2 corners.
That was not the pass, but you saw Nigel raise his left fist, hoping to catch Eric Comas' eye in his rearview mirrors. And look at the gap Alain Prost has been able to open back up.
Still only 2.1 seconds, and Nigel seems to be very, very fast into these corners. The Ferrari, on the other hand, with that V12 power, it certainly gets off the corners quickly, but Nigel said he had a soft brake pedal this morning in the warm-up, but it certainly doesn't seem to be affecting him this afternoon.
Alain Prost, 36 years of age. Both of these men, former winners of this race. Alain Prost, father of 2 young children, the winningest driver in Formula One history with 44 victories. Nigel Mansell, the former engineering student from Birmingham, England, who once sold all of his possessions in order to keep his racing career alive. Here's a familiar sight here this weekend. The Fun Metal, the former Osella car, is blowing an engine. Now, there's no telling how long Olivier Griard will stay on the track if he holds true to form.
Not only on the track, but steadfastly on the racing line, making himself unpopular yet again.
You can see all the marbles.
Rubber there. Very good view of the marbles there.
You could see what would happen if you got off the racing line. It's the only clean part of the track. Incredible how these Formula One cars stick to that line, too.
Here they go through Gulf. That little right-hand sweep on the straight down to the Adelaide hairpin. Nigel going in under control there. Now then, neither of these drivers at this stage, they want to be pretty careful if they're not intending to stop again about locking up any brakes and flat spotting.
There's Griard, I should say, in the pits. The V8 in his Fun Metal car having given up. Fun Metal makes racing wheels that a lot of teams in Formula One use, like Benetton and several other teams, including Footwork. The sponsor bought the team. The car is now called a Fun Metal. You are watching Ice versus Fire. The cool, calculating professor, Alain Prost, in the Ferrari, trying to hold off this man, the absolute personification of emotion and spirit in Formula One, Nigel Mansell in the Williams.
And you can see how that gap has whittled down. The Williams, certainly the chassis of the year, has been right from race 1 in Phoenix. And it's obviously, certainly my opinion, I know it's other people's as well, but if Ayrton Senna was driving a McLaren, a Williams, he would in fact still be leading the World Championship. This car is terrific. There's no doubt about it. The combination of the Williams chassis and the Renault engine is just fabulous.
And Nigel Mansell has used it to maximum effect. He has just reset fast lap, pushing down toward the 1-minute 19-second barrier. We'll be back to the French Grand Prix. Beautiful and historic Nevers, France, about a 3-hour drive southeast of Paris, and one of the centers of the substantial French wine industry. Home of the Magny Cours circuit, and the site of the French Grand Prix for at least 5 years to come. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs with you live. You see Ayrton Senna making his way around in the Marlboro McLaren Honda, about to put a lap on his Brazilian countryman Nelson Piquet in the Benetton. It is Prost, your leader, followed by Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna, Jean Alesi, Ricardo Patrese, then Nelson Piquet. 1 lap down, Mauricio Gugelmin, Andrea De Cesaris, Roberto Moreno, Johnny Herbert, and Pierluigi Martini. 2 laps down, Stefano Modena and Eric Comas. 3 laps in arrears, Terry Boutsen. 4 laps, and out of the race, Olivier Griard. Let's get down to the pit lane now, and John Bizignano.
Bob, we just wanted to bring you up to date on the fire and ice, which you mentioned earlier. They want Mansell to just cool it for a little while. If he overdrives the tires, that means if he overheats the tires, if he overuses them, they will blister and he will lose his handling capabilities. Goodyear is worried about the last 20 laps. That's going to be the important part. Right now, the team wants Mansell to just hold on to Prost, but not push too hard. It's tough to do for a man like Mr. Mansell.
Of course, it's also very tough for Al in front, because he is watching the mirror and the road in front, trying to work out what Mansell's up to, and he wants to go fast, but not too fast to overdrive his tyres either. So it's a big problem. There's John Alesi in the second Ferrari going under Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet being the perfect example of maybe the Pirelli engineers made totally the wrong decision. They have yet to stop the tyres, but they probably would have been a lot better off if they had stopped the tyres.
The Benetton cars that won in Canada 2 races ago are pretty hapless here today in round 7 of the series in France. Round 8 coming up in 2 weeks' time at Great Britain. We hope you'll join us for that live.
Of course, with the way things fall, Nelson Piquet, in fact, is in 6th spot at the moment and in for 1 point, which is fine, but I mean, he is a lap down, and it will be 2 laps down very shortly.
Let me correct myself. We will be in Britain in 1 week's time, next Sunday, live here on ESPN. Jean Alesi, who's been somewhat quiet, been running in the top 6, the points-paying positions all day, but he has not moved up substantially. He's now running 4th.
And Riccardo Patrese trails him in 5th spot. Riccardo having an unhappy afternoon. I'm sure that he made some tactical error on the car setup. And there you see Nigel getting right alongside the leader. See how quick he is into the corners.
We are into that 20-lap window that John Bisignano mentioned earlier, has the tire engineers concerned. Working lap number 54 of 72 scheduled.
Down to the chicane. This is the last right-hander onto the start-finish straight. Ferrari pulls away just a little bit, although it's always deceiving. It's very easy to think the car in front is pulling away, but the actual time gap is about the same. Obviously, when you're doing 20 miles an hour and you're 20 feet behind, and it's, say, half a second, when you're doing 200 miles an hour, you're a heck of a lot further in front, but it's actually the same time.
Same difference.
But this is where Mansell's quick. Now, he's using the draft from the Ferrari.
Ooh, he'll try the outside going into the hairpin, and he's got it, I think.
Yep.
Nigel Mansell has retaken the lead.
Great outside pass. But immediately is confronted by an absolute gaggle of traffic. All of these people, of course, involved in their own very serious race.
Well, that had to be a terribly satisfying pass for Nigel Mansell, who, as I mentioned earlier, has no particular love for Alain Prost after leaving the Ferrari team last year.
And, of course, Prost moved to the inside here to block the pass, the inside pass, which he would expect. And Nigel, in fact, gave him an outside pass. But immediately runs into this group of cars. That's Moreno.
Pierluigi Martini in the black car. And there is Riccardo Patrese, Nigel's teammate on the Williams squad, about to be lapped by his teammate as Roberto Moreno makes room for Alain Prost.
Now Patrese's got an opportunity here to do a bit of gamesmanship, helping his teammate.
This is an amazing corner. It just seems to go on forever, and these cars just rocket through there. Now there's Patrese letting Mansell pass. And will he block? Yes, he will.
Silly question. And now, of course, it's going to be difficult because the road moves around here, and it's going to be very difficult for him to legitimately let him by. And no doubt he won't anyway. But Mansell has to work his way around now. Pierluigi Martini and Johnny Herbert. No, we won't go through there. Oh dear, I didn't see you. I'm sorry, Al. I must have missed you somehow in the mirror.
Well, those are small mirrors. It's easy to miss them, I suppose.
Yes, they are small.
Mansell trails Nelson Piquet by just 3 points for 3rd place in the World Championship. So if Mansell can win this race, he will leapfrog ahead of both Piquet and teammate Patrese, leaving Williams drivers 2nd and 3rd in the World Championship.
And also, it'll be good for their manufacturers' points as well, because they are languishing by 20 at the moment, but with 10 for a win, that will halve that gap too.
Now, Patrese just saw the blue flag. He chose to ignore it, shall we say. Now, this may put him in the crosshairs of this new FISA commission on driver safety and driver conduct during the course of a race. And there you see the gap that Nigel Mansell has been able to open up, but he has that traffic. Pierluigi Martini and Johnny Herbert just ahead of him. We'll take a quick timeout. 4 cars remain on the lead lap in the Grand Prix of France. We are back live at the Grand Prix of France. Coming up, the Grand Prix of Great Britain. Now, I know I've been saying 2 weeks from now all day. Well, it is actually 1 week from now. Next Sunday, the 14th of July, live at 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time, the halfway point of the 1991 World Driving Championship, the Grand Prix of Great Britain. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs with you. In and out of the pits, Stefano Modena with the Tyrrell team. Modena came in way back in 13th place, so he had nothing to lose by coming in and changing those Pirelli tires.
He may well have opted, of course, at this stage for a softer compound, but it'll be hard for him to make up the time that he's behind. Or it'd be impossible for him to make it up unless people drop out.
Nigel Mansell right there leads the race, beginning lap number 59 of 72. There are 13, make that 14 laps, including this one, remaining in this 72-lap race.
With a 4.2-second lead over Prost, one of the biggest leads that we've seen in the whole afternoon.
And the sun is burning brighter. The track is going to be getting hotter. The drivers are going to have to work harder. The track is 2.654 miles around with, as David mentioned, almost 24 changes of direction. And lots of braking and even more shifting.
Some of the changes of direction are pretty subtle, but they're nothing but a nuisance and a frustration to the drivers, like this one here, where it just sort of meanders its way from the 180-degree hairpin down to this complex, which is the Imola. There you see the big dip. They go right, then left, and then come into this corner here, which is the right-hander, leading them down to the last 2 corners. And a lot of these direction changes are just nothing but a nuisance to the drivers. Like, this would be a great spot to overtake, except the chicane comes up there.
Nigel Mansell must certainly be careful. Remember the huge lead he had in Canada and lost it within a mile of the finish. John Bisignano has a comment from the pit lane.
Asking earlier, what was the priority of the fans here? Was it Alain Prost or was it Renault? Well, that grandstand behind me, every time Alain Prost came by in the lead, they were standing up and cheering. And since he has gone into second place, no one's been on their feet. They definitely want Alain Prost to win the French Grand Prix. Renault is secondary.
Well, right now it's a battle between Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost. Neither one has won a race in 1991, and they would very much like to end that slump. It was Portugal in 1990, a very controversial win for Nigel Mansell. It truly broke the spirit of the Ferrari team, and Alain Prost clutched the team to his breast. Nigel Mansell says that is when he became totally estranged from the Ferrari team, ironically, when he won. Alain Prost has not won since Spain in 1990. We're riding with Nigel Mansell.
At Renault screaming as he passes the Honda V10 car of Stefano Modena.
Nigel comes around to complete lap 60. 12 laps remain.
I think Modena went into the pits there behind on that lap. There you see the first 2 left-handers turning into this right-hander, the Estoril. This is the one that you commented on. And there is Stefano Modena. Looks like he's no power. Remember Stefano Modena having a violent explosion in the tunnel at Monte Carlo, sending poor old Riccardo Patrese into the barriers.
Modena has just signed, we understand, a new contract with the Tyrrell organization for next year, so he will be off the driver market as the silly season approaches. Lots of great stories, I'm sure, we will have in 1 week's time at the British Grand Prix live here on ESPN. We'll be right back to the French Grand Prix. You're riding with Nigel Mansell of Great Britain, a new resident of the United States. Year-round, he now says. He will be living in his new home in Clearwater, Florida. We are working lap number 62. There are 10 laps remaining as Nigel comes around to complete the lap. Meanwhile, John Bisignano has a story in the pit lane.
Well, the Pirelli engineers are going very closely over Piquet's tires. Remember, he came in along with Moreno with only 13 and 12 laps to go, respectively. They had to be handling very poorly for them to come in at this late stage of the race. They're on new rubber now. They're going much quicker, but I don't think they're going to be able to make up the distance that they lost this late stage in the race by making a pit stop. Moreno came back into the pits. His engine was running, but very, very much off song. We'll find out exactly what went wrong there.
Working lap number 63 as you watch Alain Prost, whose hopes of victory here are now fading. He trails Nigel Mansell by some 5.5 seconds. Ayrton Senna in third place has been very quiet today. He is 30 seconds behind Prost in third. Jean Alesi closing in on Senna in fourth. He is just 2.1 seconds back. Then Riccardo Patrese in fifth. He's been having problems today in his Williams Renault. He is 51 seconds behind Alesi.
I would look for the Alesi-Senna match. Oh, here we see it as I speak. To be the match of the day now, because Alesi will want to perform well in front of his home crowd. And you remember it was his debut just 2 years ago at Paul Ricard that set the world alight. You know, this was the new young superstar of racing. He did a fantastic job in the hitherto relatively uncompetitive Tyrrell. And here he is just 2 years later driving for every schoolboy's dream team, Ferrari. But at the moment, not being able to come to grips with Senna, who cannot come to grips at all with Alesi's teammate Prost. There you see Senna, fertile brain, working out what to do next year, how much that 23 mil he wants to take.
There is Terry Boutsen in the Ligier. Ayrton Senna, it would appear, has been carrying the McLaren Honda team figuratively as much as the McLaren Honda race car has been carrying him this year. Recall that with only top gear, he managed to win the Brazilian Grand Prix in the rain. He has had oil pressure problems. He has had shift linkage problems. He has had gearbox problems. He has climbed from the car with cramps, with blistered hands. And now he is flat unable to compete with the Williams Renault or, it would appear, the new Ferrari. Here's John Visignano once again.
Both Tyrrell cars out of the French Grand Prix. I have to correct myself. It wasn't Modena that came. It was Modena that came puffing into the pits very slowly. Moreno is still out circulating as fast as he can on some very worn Pirellis. The gearbox went away on the second Tyrrell. Of course, Nakajima out very quickly. Tyrrell boys, they are packing up and getting out of here, heading for Great Britain in 1 week's time.
Jean Alesi in the red car in the background, closing in now on Ayrton Senna. You're maybe right, David. This may be a good battle before this one's over. There is Terry Boutsen. The Ligier appears to be bulletproof this year. It's just not very fast. But fortunes can change quickly in the World Championship. Stay with us for more live action from France. Are at Magny, Cours, France, and the Grand Prix of France. Round 7 of 16 in the Formula One World Championship. 10 points at stake to win. Right now, they seem to be in the pocket of the man to the left of your screen, Nigel Mansell. Every point earned this year will count toward the World Championship. In previous years, the drivers could take their best 11 finishes. But this year, all 16 will count, and that makes each point even more precious.
And, of course, there's one more point for the win. 10 instead of 9, so there's a bigger differential between first and second. It's 10-6 now instead of 9-6. So those will be points that Nigel could really badly use. At the moment, he's only got 13 to Senna's 44, but of course 10 suddenly popping up to second spot with 23 points.
Of the 26 cars that started, 13 are still running. Terry Boutsen is the tail ender, 3 laps down to this man. Nigel Mansell leads Alain Prost by 5.7 seconds as he works lap number 67. There will be 5 laps to go next time past the start-finish line.
I would say that Prost has settled for the second place here. He's losing ground at the rate of about 3/4 of a second a lap.
Roberto Moreno
out of the race. You can see how those hot tires have picked up all that soil and grass there from the edge of the road and some gravel.
Moreno was running 11th. We are now down to 12 cars still running. Tough break for Roberto, who had such a terrific debut with the Benetton team, substituting for Alessandro Nannini. No further word on Nannini's progress after that horrible accident, which his arm was severed by a helicopter rotor blade in a crash. You watch Ayrton Senna making his way around. There is Roberto Moreno. He's had a lot of poor finishes, a lot of mechanical problems recently. Incidentally, Martin Donnelly, the Irishman who had a terrible crash at the Spanish Grand Prix last September, doing quite well. He expects to get back in a Formula One car in September, and we hope that he'll be able to join us for the German Grand Prix coming up at the end of this month here on ESPN. 5 laps remaining. There is Terry Boutsen in one of the Ligers. His teammate Eric Comas, one of the young lions from France, just behind him. They are running 11th and 12th, the last 2 cars in the race.
Roberto Moreno was 12th. He's now dropped out, of course. We saw him sitting at the side of the wall looking pretty hot. It is extremely hot here in central France today. Looking hot and, of course, dejected. The drive of a lifetime became his last fall when Nannini had that horrendous helicopter accident you were talking about. They drafted Moreno in, and he came second in Japan, third in Japan, first time out.
Wearing the blue of France, French racing blue. There is Eric Comas in the Ligier, perhaps the most politically well-connected team in all of Formula One. There is Nigel Mansell, the overall race leader. There will be 4 laps to go this time around. Prost now 6.5 seconds back. Senna 31.1 seconds behind Prost. Alesi still 2.5 seconds behind Senna. Patrese now 1:05 behind Alesi, and in the final points-paying position, 6th place, Andre de Cesaris. After that early spin, it looks like he might well score points for his 3rd straight race, and that would be a great break for Andrea, who has taken a lot of guff over the years. There is one of the firemen in a particularly attractive firefighting gear. I wonder how effective it might be. We'll be back with the closing moments of the Grand Prix of France in a moment. You are riding with Nigel Mansell of Great Britain in the fastest car in Formula One right now, and the most reliable, the Williams with Renault V10 power. Interesting to note that the Williams team scored just 6 points between 2 cars in the first 3 races of the year. In the last 3, they have scored 27 points between their 2 drivers, Nigel Mansell and Riccardo Patrese.
Riccardo Patrese is still going to score a couple of points today. God willing, in the next 3 laps, he'll come 5th. I don't think there's much chance of him pulling up on young John Alesi. There you see the car of Mansell about to try and put another lap on Maurizio Gugelmin. The Leighton House Ilmore team must be disappointed with today's performance. They had hoped so much on this smooth track, and Gugelmin at the moment is running in 7th spot, just out of the points.
Nigel Mansell looking for a victory. That would certainly help his negotiating position as he talks with team owner Frank Williams about next year. Maurizio Gugelmin not giving much ground there. Now he lets the other man through.
He tried to give a bit, but just misjudged it somewhat. Ran up on the curb after to let him through, but
there's another look.
He turns in. Ooh, I don't think he's seen him there. Right.
There's Frank Williams watching the replay, wondering what's happening to his man.
It's just the sort of thing you don't want with 3 laps to go when you've got a 7-second lead.
That is the lead that Nigel Mansell enjoys over Alain Prost and Ferrari. Nigel, after the heartbreak of Canada, where he led to within 1 mile of the checkered flag, is looking for his 17th career win, and that would break a tie with Sterling Moss as the winningest driver.
Gap now between Alesi and Senna. This is the battle for 3rd spot, a spot that Alesi would dearly like, because the Ferrari too, their point scoring this year has not been great, to say the least. Languishing down in 4th spot as a constructor with a mere 16 points compared to McLaren's 54.
1 lap remains. Nigel Mansell is on the last lap of the French Grand Prix. To finish my point, if he wins this race, and as we know if you watch the Canadian race, it's not over yet for Nigel. He certainly won't be waving at the crowd this time around, I don't think. He would break a tie with Sterling Moss for the winningest British Formula One driver.
Winningest English Formula One.
I beg your pardon, English Formula One driver.
Winningest British driver, of course, is Jackie Stewart with 27 wins.
Quite right, thank you.
But Jackie certainly would not want to be called English.
Absolutely not. The wee Scot is the winningest British driver ever and a 3-time world champion. Interestingly, Nigel will become the winningest English driver, perhaps the winningest driver of all time, never to have won the world championship. I'll have to check that stat.
He and Sterling, of course, both go for that. Sterling was probably the most unlucky non-winner of all time. There is a man that should have won it at least twice. As Nigel powers through that.
Oh, Lacey had apparently tried Ayrton Senna for 3rd place, and you can bet he will try again, but he's running out of time.
Nigel coming down to the flag, the last chicane, up to the last corner, the Lycée, round the corner, and there is the flag.
And now he waves to the crowd as a winner will.
Well, we ought to hope and see.
As Nigel Mansell wakes his way around, let's get down to the pit lane. Well, I tell you what, let's hang on right here because Ayrton Senna may come under fire one last time here from the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. 2 more turns for Ayrton Senna to hold on to 3rd place behind Alain Prost. Nigel Mansell has won. Prost will be 2nd, Senna 3rd, Alesi 4th, Ricardo Patrese 5th, and Andrea de Cesaris 6th. Now to the pit lane where John is standing by with Frank Williams.
Frank, this is getting to be a very nice custom. 2 weekends in a row. Your thoughts after such a great victory?
Very, very happy for Nigel. He's waited a long time. And a great, great race for Renault. It's the home country, and of course it's great for them and for us.
Are you going to be just as competitive in Great Britain? 5 days from now, this whole circus has to pick up and go working again in Great Britain. You ready?
Yeah, we should be in good shape. We'll see.
Nigel's going to be tough there.
Oh, yeah, he's got a good charge going now, yes.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Congratulations to Frank Williams, who embodies much of what is so attractive about Formula One. Frank Williams has not seen his drivers take back-to-back victories since 1987. We will return live to the French Grand Prix to wrap things up in just a moment. A big Ferrari crowd will go away slightly disappointed on a warm day in Magny Cours. The season is drawing to a close here at the new Circuit du Nevers Magny Cours, and we must prepare to bid adieu to the Loire Valley in central France. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of France has been brought to you by the trophies high on the podium over the pit straightaway here at the new Circuit Nevers Magny Cours. It has proven itself certainly a challenge. Let's take a look at the final results of today's race. Nigel Mansell picks up that long-sought 17th career victory over Alain Prost in the brand new and virtually untested Ferrari. Prost led much of the race until passed by Mansell on 2 occasions. Ayrton Senna comes home with a 3rd for the McLaren Honda team, followed by the Ferrari of Jean Alesi, Ricardo Patrese in the 2nd Williams Honda, and in the final points-paying position, Andrea de Cesaris of Italy for the new Jordan Ford team. Maurizio Gugelmin of Brazil finishes in 7th, followed by Nelson Piquet in the Benetton, Pierluigi Martini, Johnny Herbert, Eric Coma, and Terry Boutsen. Let's get down to the pit lane now, and John Bisignano.
Ron, your man's on the podium, but he's not in his usual position. Do you have a secret weapon coming up for Great Britain?
It's going to be really Hockenheim before we get things sorted out. We know where we're weak, and I've never been so happy to come 3rd. It's a really good effort by Ayrton. Made probably one of the best pit stops ever, and I think everything contributed to what, in the circumstances for us, where we're at the moment, is a good result.
I think you have a point of pride there for sure. What about the point situation? Of course, you're still in very good shape, both in constructors and drivers' point. You think the team might be getting a little comfortable?
Not at all. We've never been more motivated.
You said there was a problem. Can you tell us directly what that problem is, sir?
If I tell you, I tell the world. But
That's right.
I have every intention of getting it fixed, but it's going to take a little time.
Well, Ron Dennis, if there's one man who can fix it in this Formula One paddock, you're looking at him.
A taciturn, tight-lipped Ronald.
Here are your driver's points. As a result of today's event, Ayrton Senna picks up 4 for a total of 48 on the year. Nigel Mansell leaps up into 2nd place with 23 points on the basis of his victory today. 1 point bumps his teammate Ricardo Patrese into third place. Alain Prost picks up much-needed points, although he trails the championship leader badly. Nelson Piquet is in 5th position. Among the constructors, McLaren Honda sees their lead being eaten into by the Williams-Renault team. Now just 13 points separate the two proudest teams out here. Well, I take that back. The third team, Ferrari, is certainly every bit as proud as the rest. Benetton Ford follows in 4th position, and the Tyrrell Honda team in 5th. Perhaps a little bit of a disappointment based on that Honda power plant they're using.
I think they must be terribly disappointed today, but somebody who'll be ecstatic again is young Eddie Jordan, who de Trezeris, one way and another, through attrition and relatively good driving, kept himself in the points again. Got another point today. And of course, we're going to see a big change in a couple of weeks' time after Britain, when people like the Footwork team and the Brabham team may well have to go for the dreaded pre-qualifying.
Pre-qualifying will be judged on the basis of the 2 previous half-seasons performances. We can expect the Jordan and the Lara teams to move up. Another couple of teams will move down, and David has already mentioned them. There is a triumvirate for you. Nigel Mansell in the middle, on the left Alain Prost, on the right Ayrton Senna. 3 of the best drivers anywhere. A final comment from John Bizignano.
It's too bad that this is all happening now. The first 4 races were so heavily dominated by the McLaren team and Ayrton Senna. That really put him into the points lead, and no matter what these people do up and down this pit lane, they will never be able to get back those points. One question for both of you people in the booth. How are we going to get out of here? They got 180,000 people here and only 2 roads. You're driving, Bobby.
God Save the Queen.
A sound I haven't heard enough this year. Nigel Mansell, no doubt ecstatic at getting this victory. Cruelly robbed at Canada just a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. And of course, that tremendous race last time out on ESPN from Mexico.
Well, knowing Nigel Mansell as we do, you can bet he will truly be geared up for the next race, the Grand Prix, his home Grand Prix in Great Britain at mighty Silverstone. Heavily revised from previous years, it will be a very different and very interesting racetrack, no doubt. That will be coming to you live next Sunday, the 14th of July at 8:50 a.m. Eastern Time. I hope you will join us all for that. I am Bob Varsha for John Bizignano and David Hobbs. Thanks for being with us for a most entertaining Formula One Grand Prix of France as Nigel Mansell accepts his trophy and waves to the crowd on his victory lap. Thanks for being with us. See you next week in Great Britain, mate. So long for now.